Chapter 939. Yi Qian was in charge of security, and Xia Jinyuan was in charge of eliminating the targets. At this moment, Xia Jinyuan was no longer as gentle as he was during the day. He was like a beast patrolling the mountains, and he began his assassination. Seeing Xia Jinyuan's actions again, Yi Qian couldn't help but applaud his skills. His tall and slender figure arched his back, and he attacked with the grace and ferocity of a cat. He didn't have a gun in his hand, and he didn't even have a dagger as he went around to the back of the target. His movements seemed to be very light, but the speed at which he solved the problem was very fast. Like a gust of wind, Yi Jian heard the rustling sound of leaves touching each other. Only a few seconds later, everything returned to normal. Xia Jinyuan liked the simplest solution. He clasped the target's head with both hands and twisted it hard. After a click, the target's neck was bent at a strange angle, and not a single drop of blood was left on the scene. The elimination was complete. They all liked to eliminate their targets in this way during the assassination at night. Yi Qian was the same. She also preferred the method of twisting the neck so that no blood would be left on the scene, and the smell of blood would not be detected. "Continue," Xia Jinyuan said softly as he returned to her side. His voice was gentle and calm. Yi Qian looked at the location where the targets were eliminated, and her eyes narrowed slightly. "There may be more than 5. Don't worry, they won't leave here alive." Xia Jinyuan lowered his head and kissed Yi Qian's cheek. He encouraged her in an intimate way. "If you and I work together, we won't be afraid of how many there are. They're not outside the borders, they're in our territory. They should be the ones worried, not us." Yi Qian took a deep breath. She was indeed worried. There were only Xia Jinyuan and her now, and there were no other reinforcements. There were more than 5 of them, and they were all mercenaries sent by the government. They were as fierce as professional soldiers, so it was normal for her to be worried that they wouldn't be eliminated in one go. With his kiss and his calm voice, the worry in her heart gradually dissipated. She looked at him and said firmly, "We can definitely do it, we definitely can. Captain Xia, if you say it's possible, then it's definitely possible." She was such a good girl. She believed him so much. "That's right, we can definitely do it. Little fox, if you say we can, then we definitely won't have a problem." His deep eyes were darker than the night as he gazed at her gently. "I'll protect you and you'll protect me. We won't have any problems. How could there be a problem? We are stepping on our own land, and the foreign mercenaries are like rats hiding in the dark. As soon as they appear, they will only be beaten and killed." Candlelight flickered in the dilapidated house, and the mountain breeze carried with it the fragrance of instant noodles. Yi Qian's eyes flashed with hostility as he held his gun tightly and sneaked into the house with Xia Jinyuan. She was in charge of sneaking in while Xia Jinyuan was in charge of eliminating the 2 whistles outside. The house was built with mud bricks from the 60s or 70s. It had been abandoned for a long time, and with a candle lit in the dense trees, it looked like a haunted house described in a novel. It was eerie and eerie. The wind in the mountains was strong, and it blew into the house that didn't even have a window frame. The candlelight flickered and was extinguished within a second. Yi Qian fired 2 shots into the darkness. Chapter 940. The room was in chaos. 3 sets of footsteps were heard. 5 people had been killed by Yi Qian, and only 3 were left. Someone cursed in the dark, and Whistle shouted from outside, "Get the F***CK out here. Quick." He was also speaking a South Asian language, so Yi Qian didn't understand him. However, he knew that Whistle had been deliberately alerted by Xia Jinyuan to lure the people in the house out. Yi Qian had finished shooting from the first position. He had already hidden behind a collapsed couch, and he stared coldly at the dilapidated house. As soon as someone came out, he would immediately start shooting. The ambush caused a moment of confusion among the mercenaries who had chased them to China's territory. When the Whistle outside deliberately alerted them that there was only 1 person, the remaining 3 mercenaries came out of the house firing randomly. In the dark, Yi Qian once again aimed at a black figure that ran out of the house. Without hesitation, he fired his 3rd bullet of the night. Every bullet had to hit a target. Uncle Chen had said that a sniper's bullet had to be fired to protect his comrades. When shooting for his comrades, there was no room for error. Bang! The muffled sound of gunfire broke the silence of the night once again. As the black figure fell to the ground, the two figures that came out of the house nimbly rolled into the bushes and quickly hid. Bang, bang, bang. Continuous gunshots were fired in the direction where Yi Qian was hiding. The remaining mercenaries had an idea of how many people had ambushed them. Xia Jinyuan didn't give the alerted whistle a chance to speak. Yi Qian suppressed the remaining two mercenaries with gunfire, while he quickly finished off the target. The dagger in his hand was not a military dagger. It was a multi-purpose knife bought from a hardware store on the street. Although the blade was a little blunt compared to a military dagger, as long as it was used well, it could still become a sharp weapon. The leaves rustled. Xia Jinyuan swung his fist, which was sharp enough to scratch skin. The close combat of the special forces was never about hiding needles in cotton floss. Instead, it was about attacking quickly and ruthlessly, then hitting the opponent accurately. There are many parts of the human body that cause severe pain, but there is only one part that slows down the mind: the brain. Xia Jinyuan continued to attack, landing several punches on the mercenary's head. The handsome and ruthless Xia Jinyuan was like an awakened lion, so awe-inspiring that the mercenary retreated step by step and let out a blood-curdling scream. He called for reinforcements, but Yi Qian's bullets seemed to have eyes. When the vegetation moved, or when there was an unfamiliar scent in the air, the bullets would hit somewhere with a bang, preventing anyone from going to help. Damn it, what the hell? The mercenary who was hit by the bullets and had to hide again rolled under a tree. His eyes were dark as he searched for his target. The mercenary who had been hit in the head several times by Xia Jinyuan staggered. As he swayed, the leaves and shrubs around him moved. The sound of rustling could be heard at this moment, making one's heart beat faster. Yi Qian smiled slightly. Captain Xia was not only an excellent special forces soldier, but also an excellent commander. In terms of tactics, he had a gift that even the veterans admired. The bigger the commotion, the more nervous the other two mercenaries would be. This would increase their psychological pressure, and her and Xia Jinyuan's chances of winning would increase. A deep, hair-raising sound came from the darkness. The smell of blood in the wind was even stronger than before. It was so thick that it drifted into everyone's nostrils. Chapter 941. Xia Jinyuan had already killed the mercenary who was slow to react. His throat had been slit twice by Xia Jinyuan. It was not a military-grade dagger after all, so he still needed to kill the target twice. The wind was still blowing, but there was no more sound. However, the smell of blood was even stronger. Xia Jinyuan did not have time to waste in the southern province. After killing the target, he and G3 returned to the battlefield overnight. He did not have time to deal with the two mercenaries who had not shown themselves and were waiting for an opportunity to strike. Next, lure the enemy. This was the battle plan that he had discussed with Yi Qian long ago. After killing 2 or 3 targets, they would not give the mercenaries a chance to catch their breath and immediately lure the enemy. Fighting in the forest, the flowers and trees were all natural cover. They would not be easily ambushed, and neither would they allow others to be ambushed easily. The next step was to lure the enemy. Yi Qian was to lure the enemy. She was a girl, and girls represented weakness in everyone's hearts. Following Yi Qian's low voice, the two mercenaries who had been hiding in the darkness and had not moved for a long time looked in the direction of the voice. A woman in front of them. Both sides surrounded and attacked. With daggers in their hands, they quickly approached Yi Qian's direction. Xia Jinyuan finished off the whistle in his hands and went to support Yi Qian as quickly as possible. He believed that Yi Qian could take on one of the mercenaries by herself. She would not have a problem taking on one of the mercenaries, but she did not have a high chance of winning against 2. The mercenaries who came this time were comparable to soldiers in the army. They were very professional, and Yi Qian lacked actual combat experience. If she really had to take on 2 of them, she would not be able to escape unscathed. The encirclement of the 2 men did not make Yi Qian panic. Bang, bang, bang. Continuous gunshots were heard and the 2 mercenaries heard the sound of bullets breaking. There were no bullets in their pistols. Her gun had no bullets. Now was the time. While her gun was out of bullets, and she needed to change her gun or change the magazine, now was the time to attack. Xia Jinyuan ran through the forest and approached the shadow as fast as he could. One of the mercenaries turned around and fired in the direction where Xia Jinyuan was running, trying to stop him. Countless birds in the forest flapped their wings and flew into the dim night sky. On the other side, the dagger in his hand glinted coldly as he thrust it towards Yi Qian. What he didn't see was that Yi Qian was smiling coldly in the dark. The black figure leaped over, and Yi Qian rolled in the bushes to avoid the attack. Yi Qian had already loaded his other pistol. In the blink of an eye, he fired 2 shots at the black figure. His speed was so fast that the other mercenary holding down Xia Jinyuan was shocked. There were 2 sounds of fighting in the forest. Unable to shoot at close range, Yi Qian was once again confronted by a mercenary tonight. Punches and kicks required strength. Not only did they have to hit the opponent's weak points, but they also had to ensure that they wouldn't be injured or killed by the opponent. Fighting was the most exhausting thing. As a girl, Principal Chen and Uncle Zhen had always planned for Yi Qian's physical fitness training. Her strength was not as good as the male soldiers, but her endurance was definitely better than the male soldiers. She leaped up and grabbed onto the branches. Relying on the lightness of her body, she lifted her feet and kicked the mercenary's head repeatedly. With a low growl, Yi Jian stepped on the mercenary and threw him into the bushes. Her aura was not inferior to that of the male soldiers. The mercenary who fell into the bushes had a ferocious expression on his face. He flashed his dagger, shouted, and jumped up again to stab Yi Qian. Chapter 942. The tip of the dagger flashed past his eyes several times. With his arm cut, Yi Qian silently grasped the silver wire in his hand. As he dodged, he looked for an opportunity to strangle the mercenary to death. At the final moment of the battle, Yi Qian grabbed the mercenary's outstretched wrist. When he took a step back, he stepped on a tree with 1 foot and jumped behind the mercenary. At the same time, he wrapped the silver wire in his right hand around the mercenary's neck. F***CK. The mercenary cursed in broken Chinese as he felt something wrapped around his neck. He threw a punch at Yi Qian's head. If Yi Qian was hit by his fist, he would definitely die at the hands of the mercenary. After 3 years of training, Yi Qian's sensitivity to danger was higher than in his previous life. His reaction was also faster. He jumped, grabbed a tree branch with both hands, and dodged the heavy punch. The silver wire wrapped around a tree branch, and as he dodged, it wrapped around another tree. That was enough. It was enough to eliminate the target in an instant. The silver wire was extremely thin. Once it was wrapped around the flesh, it would not be easy to pull it out. The neck was the most dangerous part of the body. Being wrapped around by anything would make a person feel fear. They would want to pull the scary thing away to free their neck. The more they thought about it, the faster they attacked, and the tighter the silver wire wrapped around them. The leaves rustled and fell like rain. One end of the silver wire wrapped around the mercenary's neck, the other end wrapped around the leaves, and then around the tree trunk. With one last punch from Yi Qian, the mercenary, who was half a head taller than Yi Qian, roared in pain. His fist swung even more fiercely. Yi Qian, who was covered in sweat, did not give his enemy a chance to retaliate. He kicked back. This was a real fight, filled with blood and death. This was a real battlefield, a bloody battlefield where it was either you die or I die. Sweat flowed into his eyes, but he did not have time to wipe it away. The dust on the leaves flew into his eyes. Even if his eyes hurt, he had to keep them open. Relying on his body's flexibility and agility, Yi Qian held the tree branch tightly with both hands. He attacked the mercenary's shoulders several times. The silver wire finally wrapped around the mercenary's neck. It was so deep that he could hear him gasping for air. The severe lack of oxygen in his brain made his movements slower and slower, and his reactions slower and slower. Gritting his teeth, Yi Qian hit the mercenary's chest one last time, causing his whole body to fall back. This was the moment. This was the moment to kill him. Yi Jian let go of the branch with both hands and quickly jumped down from the high place. The moment she jumped down, she also took out the pistol hidden in her clothes and aimed at the black shadow that turned over and shot. The sixth mercenary had been eliminated. Yi Jian leaned against a tree and slowly sat down with her back against the tree trunk. She panted heavily as if she would suffocate if she didn't breathe properly. The smell of blood in the air was stronger than before. It was so thick that it could not be dissolved. His entire chest was filled with the rusty smell of blood. Xia Jinyuan used the cold blade to stab the mercenary's arm that was strangling his neck. He slashed down fiercely and directly cut the mercenary's arm tendons. In the darkness, his deep eyes were cold. Facing the enemy, his gaze was so cold that it could make one shiver in fear. The mercenary's arm tendons were cut, and the strength in his arms suddenly disappeared. Xia Jinyuan immediately grabbed the mercenary's head. He lifted his leg and hooked the mercenary's neck. With a sharp look in his eyes, he threw the mercenary to the ground. Chapter 943. The dagger in his hand was still stained with blood. The sharp blade instantly pierced the mercenary's heart. He twisted the handle so that the tip of the dagger could still move. Ah! A sharp scream became the last note of the battle. Xia Jinyuan had been using his iron arms to pin the mercenary's head in place. He then wrapped his legs around the mercenary's chest and locked his arms. Even when he heard the mercenary's screams, his heart did not soften. These people deserve to die. Xia Jinyuan maintained his killing posture. He wrapped his arms around his target. From the initial fierce struggle to the point of no resistance, Xia Jinyuan calmly let go of his arms and legs only when the sound from the mercenary's throat disappeared. He stood up. With him as the center, the bushes around him seemed to have been swept by a hurricane. Some of the bushes were even uprooted. Yiqian. He raised his voice. His voice was calm and steady. He walked over step by step until he reached the center of the battle. In the dim light, Xia Jinyuan heard the sound of rapid breathing and found Yiqian. She was sitting against a tree. Her slender body was one with the tree and the night. If not for the sound of her breathing, he wouldn't have noticed her. He walked closer and closer. Then he slowly bent down and squatted to look at her at eye level. "How are you? Do you have the strength to stand up again?" Both of them emitted a strong smell of rust. Yiqian blinked and looked at the man in the dark. His eyes were as bright as stars. He smiled and said, "I'm fine. I just feel a little weak." "Not bad." Her voice was steady. There was no trembling, no fear, and no panic. She was even better than the last time in Pakistan. Xia Jinyuan, who was originally facing her, adjusted his position and sat down shoulder to shoulder with Yiqian. He reached out to put his arm around her shoulder and let her head rest on his shoulder. Then he hugged her tightly. "Rest for a while." "Good efficiency. From the first target to the last one, we used 1.5 hours. You're counting the time." Yiqian took a deep breath, then slowly exhaled. "You can still count the time. I've been thinking about how to get rid of him." Xia Jinyuan smiled and said gently, "If you have time in your heart, you don't need to calculate to know." Turning his head, he rubbed the tip of his handsome nose against her hairline and asked, "Are you hurt anywhere?" "My arm has been through a lot this year. I had just recovered from my injury, but I cut myself again and hurt my right arm." Yiqian looked up and saw his lips pressed against her forehead. "How about you? Are you okay?" At this moment, even the mountain wind calmed down. The crickets started chirping again, and the startled birds returned to their nests. Except for the smell of blood in the air, everything was so peaceful and leisurely. Xia Jinyuan gently kissed her on the forehead. At that moment, he could feel Yiqian taking the initiative to get closer to him and offer her heart to him. She was looking for support from him, and he was also looking for support from her. He said, "Passing through the smoke of war between life and death, isn't this kind of interaction more unforgettable than those romantic interactions?" It wasn't if, but if it was true. This kind of love could be soul-stirring in the smoke of war, but it could also be indifferent in leisure. It wouldn't become dull with time, and it would only make them more and more compatible. They would become more and more dependent on each other and become each other's support. Chapter 944. They would never be separated. As long as they could still fight, they would always be together. They would go through life and death together and grow old together. This kind of love was stronger than a romantic relationship. Love was stronger than gold and unbreakable. The two of them leaned against each other. They had survived a life and death battle and leaned against each other again. The wind didn't want to disturb them and let them sit quietly and talk softly. "I'm fine. I'm used to it." Xia Jinyuan moved his lips away from her forehead and held her shoulders tightly. He said softly, "The gauze is in the car. Treat your wounds after you get in the car." His voice was steady in the wind, so steady that she felt at ease. Yi Qian's breathing gradually calmed down and she no longer rested her head on his shoulders. She said calmly, "The target in southern province has been dealt with. You and G3 can return to the battlefield to look for K7. She had her phone with her to maintain contact with the military. After the small envelope was sent, a series of text messages were sent back to the military. "Clean up the scene before you leave." Xia Jinyuan stood up and let Yi Qian hold his outstretched hand. They stood up together and the coldness in his eyes had not dissipated. His gaze swept across the scene like a knife and he said calmly, "Bury them." After 2 hours of burying, Yi Qian's shoulders were so sore that she couldn't lift them up. Her shoulders had already been kicked in the hospital. After fighting and burying them, she suddenly lost all strength in her shoulders and the soreness rushed up like needles. "Sit for a while. I'll clean up the scene again." Xia Jinyuan helped her sit down on a brick. She didn't say anything, but he could tell. "You don't have to force yourself in front of me, little fox. You don't have to force yourself in front of your comrades. Especially after a battle, when you need to rest and replenish your energy, you must replenish it in time. We didn't just fight once. We fought countless times." Yi Qian gritted her teeth and didn't force herself. She sat down and tried to relax her shoulders. "My shoulders are sore, but I still have the strength to walk. Give me 10 minutes to rest." "Okay, I also need 10 minutes to clean up." Xia Jinyuan patted her on the shoulder lightly. There was a touch of gentleness in his cold and hard eyes. "You're great, Yi Jian. You're really great." Yi Qian raised his head and smiled at him. His smile was light, as clear and bright as the wind in the mountains. "I still need to work harder. I can't become a burden to my comrades." "How could this be? Are you now thinking that you've become a burden to me?" Xia Jinyuan frowned slightly and said solemnly, "Our bodies are not made of iron. There will always be times when we are tired. Being tired does not mean that we will become a burden to our comrades. Sometimes, you are tired because you are tired to protect your comrades. This kind of tiredness will never become a burden to your comrades. It's precisely because you exhausted yourself to protect your comrades and win victory for your comrades. This isn't tiredness, but glory." He did not want her to put too much pressure on herself. If there was pressure, she had to remember to face it properly. She didn't understand burden in this way. The correct understanding of burden was that she didn't do anything during normal times, delayed opportunities on the battlefield, and caused failure to control the battlefield. This kind of person was a burden. Think about it carefully, but remember, don't let your imagination run wild. Xia Jinyuan rubbed the top of her head heavily and reminded her in a gentle and serious voice, "Think about what a burden is." After he finished speaking, Yi Qian couldn't help but laugh as she watched his tall figure turn and leave. Chapter 945. Captain Xia really cared about her in all aspects, even her psychological development. She had never met such a man before, but she knew that she had met a very good and outstanding man. The night passed quietly when they returned to the car from the mountain. It was 5 o'clock in the morning in autumn. Xia Jinyuan took out the first aid kit from the car. Yi Qian had already taken off his jacket and was sitting in the grass wearing only a short-sleeved shirt. The knife wound was a little deep, but it was not so deep that the flesh was torn apart. However, because it was not bandaged, the area around the wound was red and swollen. Xia Jinyuan was no stranger to disinfecting and debridement. He disinfected, stopped the bleeding, sprinkled anti-inflammatory powder, wrapped the arm with gauze, and added another injury to Yi Qian's arm. This wound is not too deep. No wonder you can endure it. Xia Jinyuan did not ask if it hurt. There was no need to ask. It definitely hurt, but compared to staying alive, this kind of pain was nothing. He had seen too many terrible injuries. Facing Yi Qian's injury, even if it was his little fox who was injured, he did not feel the need to hug and comfort her. As a soldier, you have to be patient with pain and injuries. Crying out in pain is a coward in the team. Yi Qian picked up the bloody sports jacket and said with a pained expression, "It's brand new. You can't wear it again." "I don't know how to wear camouflage. It's stained with blood, soak it in detergent for a night, then scrub it a few times the next day to make it clean." Xia Jinyuan looked down at the clumps of stains on his body and raised his eyebrows. "I can't wear this either." Their faces and bodies were covered in blood. Xia Jinyuan took the car keys hidden in the tree and laughed at Yi Qian, who was still holding the jacket. "Let's go find a place with water to wash our faces and hands. Aren't we going to find G3 immediately?" Yi Qian did not throw the jacket away. He hugged it in his arms and got into the car. "G3 is still in the hospital alone. Should we contact him first?" He started the car and turned on the headlights. The car drove into the foggy mountain road. His faint laughter came from the car. "No need. He will take the initiative to go back to the hotel." The whole night's action made her bones sore. Standing in the small stream in the mountain, Yi Jian grabbed a handful of unknown water plants and washed the blood on her hands and between her fingers. A pair of slender hands that were also stained with blood reached over and held her hands. Using the grass that he had crushed earlier, he gently rubbed it between her fingers. "The blood can be washed clean now, but there will be more and more in the future. Sometimes, you can even smell the blood on your hands." "I've always thought that if I had a pair of hands that could smell blood, I would never be able to hold another girl's hand for the rest of my life." Sometimes, Xia Jinyuan couldn't help but tremble when he saw it. Now, as he held a pair of blood-stained hands, he felt his heart soften. The girl beside him had a pair of blood-stained hands like his. She was not afraid and did not shrink back. Instead, she faced it bravely like him and even supported him when he was in danger. Just like G3 said, it was a blessing of 3 lifetimes to find a girl who could accept them. And he really found a girl who could accept his profession. It was a blessing of 3 lifetimes. Yi Qian frowned slightly. He didn't quite understand what he meant. He joked, "What? Did you want to hold another girl's hand before?" Chapter 946. Although he was joking, Xia Jinyuan did not dare to take it seriously. He answered seriously, "I never thought that you were the only girl I wanted to hold hands with. You were also the only girl who dared to take the initiative to hold my hands when my hands were stained with blood." His reaction made Yi Qian chuckle. "Not even when you were young and frivolous?" Xia Jinyuan pretended to think about it. When she looked at him coldly, he said slowly, "When I was young and frivolous, I did all sorts of bad things. All I thought about was how to go against my father. How could I have other thoughts? After I was young and frivolous, other people were busy with their first awakening of love, while I was busy studying for the military school entrance exam." Xia Jinyuan spoke slowly. His low voice was like dancing music, gentle and cheerful. "After graduating from the military school, I was assigned to Fujian town. The army was full of male soldiers. Before I met you, the only hands I could hold were those of male soldiers. One day, I suddenly held a girl's hand. At that time, there was only one thought in my mind. Why is it so soft? So soft that—" Yi Qian, who had been listening attentively, realized that he was talking about her again. She immediately raised her voice. Okay, I believe you. You don't have to explain." If he continued to explain, it would make her blush and feel uncomfortable. "No, this concerns my innocence. I have to explain it clearly," Major Xia said seriously. Major Xia said seriously. Yi Jian looked at him with a faint smile and an ambiguous expression. She maintained her composure on the surface, but her heart was boiling like boiling water. "This concerns my innocence. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it." She wanted to cover her ears, but he was still holding her hand. She wanted to run away. How could she outrun him? Most importantly, he liked to make her feel embarrassed. The more she acted this way, the more excited he would be. The first time I held a girl's hand, I was really shocked. It was so soft that I felt like I could break it if I used too much strength. Little fox, why is your hand so soft? It's as if it has no bones. It's so soft that it even reaches my heart. Later, when I hugged you, I thought, no wonder they say that women are made of water. I hugged you like this and really didn't want to let go. But you were still young at that time. I put you down and you pounced on me. You even straddled me. How tall were you then? Not even 1.6 meters, like a little bean. Yi Qian wanted to drown himself in the water. He said that he and a few other soldiers had received close-range combat training within 30 meters, and their opponent was a real sniper in the army. He didn't know why Xia Jinyuan appeared out of nowhere and accidentally encountered him. Yi Qian blushed a little when he thought about how he had been pinned down by Yi Zihao. His voice sounded like it was overflowing with water as he reprimanded in a low voice, "You pervert!" At that time, he was only 14. His thoughts were all over the place. You're right. At that time, I also felt like a hooligan. Xia Jinyuan, who had always done things in an upright manner, readily admitted that he was indeed a hooligan at that time. You were too bold. You straddled a male soldier all of a sudden. When I was scaring you, I even thought about whether I should kiss you. Fortunately, you angrily called me an old man. A basin of cold water was poured over me and woke me up. Otherwise... As he spoke, he leaned closer to Yi Qian's cheek and quickly kissed her with his thin lips. The noble and handsome major smiled so brightly that Yi Qian couldn't help but raise his leg to kick him. Major Xia, who had dodged to the side, finished his unfinished sentence along with the morning breeze. Otherwise, I really would have kissed you back then. Now that it's like this, I can't help but want to kiss you. Chapter 947. When it came to how to get along with Yi Qian, Major Xia had always been aggressive. If he didn't take the initiative, this girl with a hard shell would never take a step forward. Only when he took the initiative would she be able to get closer to him. It was normal for her to be shy. He was shy too. Xia Jinyuan, why are you hiding? You said so many crazy things about being a hooligan, yet you won't let me kick you. Yi Qian was only shy about his behavior, not angry. Her eyes were like water, and even when she glanced at him, they were still bright and beautiful. I'm only 14 years old, and you're already having such thoughts. Your thoughts are too improper. He had long realized that his thoughts were improper, but realizing it and wanting to correct them were two completely different things. However, he was really glad that his thoughts were improper at the time, and that he didn't miss out on such a good girl. If you only act like a hooligan and don't take responsibility, then that's called improper. Mine doesn't count. My thoughts are proper, my attitude is serious, and I can withstand the test. Looking at Yi Qian, who was so shy that her face was as red as rouge, Xia Jinyuan's eyes were so gentle that there were whirlpools in them. His laughter gradually subsided. He held her hand tightly, stared at the girl he liked, and said slowly and seriously, Yi Qian, you're the only girl I want to hold hands with. You're the only girl who doesn't mind holding my blood-stained hands, and who is brave enough to hold them. As for other girls, if I were to hold out my blood-stained and reeking hands to them, I'm afraid they would faint before I could even open my mouth. His serious words made Yi Qian feel helpless and bitter. Who would dare to hold a pair of blood-stained hands? She lowered her head and looked at her own hands. They were also stained with blood, and even the gaps between her fingers were stained with blood. It took a lot of courage to hold a pair of hands that reeked of blood. After a few hours, the blood that had dried between the fingers was difficult to remove. It needed to be washed carefully. Yi Qian looked at the man who had been looking at her with a gentle expression. The invisible layer of coldness in her eyes slowly softened, and there was a hint of affection in her eyes. Let me tell you a real story. One day, after training, J5 mentioned something in the chat. He said that one of our retired soldiers had just returned to the company after completing a mission. Just as he was changing out of his blood-stained clothes, one of his comrades told him that a girl was looking for him. The old soldier was so happy that he ran out excitedly and saw his girlfriend standing at the entrance of the camp like a flower. The soldier held his girlfriend's hand, but before he said anything he heard his girlfriend frowning and asked why he reeked of blood on his body. And then he saw the blood between his fingers, so he immediately retracted his hand. Later, the soldier said that he would never be able to forget the expression on her face at that time. She was disgusted, very disgusted. She was disgusted by the smell of blood on his body, the bloodstains on his hands, and even more disgusted by how dirty he was. The bloodstains between his fingers were gradually cleaned, and then she rinsed them with water. Xia Jinyuan held the hand that reeked of blood as well as his own. He slowly looked up and fixed his gaze on her. His sorrowful voice was as clear as a flowing stream, trickling over. Later, the soldier broke up with her and took the initiative to end their 2-year relationship. Later on, the soldier retired from the army. It was said that he found a nurse who also had to deal with blood. This was the story I heard on the 4th day I joined the army. It was a sad story. I've been thinking about what I would have done if it were me. Chapter 948. Yi Qian also looked at him and asked with his eyes, "If it were you, what would you do?" I thought about it for a week. At that time, all I could think about was you. I thought that I needed to find a girl like Yi Qian. I needed to find a girl who could understand me, and I could understand her. Otherwise, if I appeared in front of her one day covered in blood, how scary would that be? Yi Jian smiled. She thought of herself. If one day she appeared in front of the other him covered in blood, the other him who lived in peace would be scared half to death. Who would be willing to find a girlfriend whose hands were covered in blood and who was nowhere to be seen at the end of the year? Even if he could accept it at the time, after a long time, he would be annoyed and tired. He would not want to continue, and break up would be a foregone conclusion. A boyfriend who did not understand her, and she could not tell him about the hardships and dangers she faced. That kind of love was not strong and could hit the rocks at any time. Only by finding a boyfriend who understood her, who had experienced the smoke and fire of war, who had been tempered so many times that they were inseparable. Only this kind of love was true love. Suddenly Yi Qian understood why Xia Jinyuan wrote in his love letter. They all said that the love of a special forces soldier was the most bitter love. It was a darkness that could not be seen under the sun. It could only struggle painfully in the dark and cold corners. Even if it was lovesickness, it would hurt to the bone. Because no one could understand them, no one could truly understand them, and no one knew how dangerous their profession was. All kinds of things such as this were because the Special Forces soldiers could not tell their loved ones that they were Special Forces soldiers. Therefore, their love struggled painfully in the corner, and their lovesickness hurt to the bone. Love that could not be seen under the sun was like a small bean sprout that sprouted in the dark. It was so delicate that it could be broken with a light touch. It was too tiring to protect such a love. It would be very, very tiring. The veteran soldier was tired. Secondly, he didn't want to implicate a girl and waste her youth. Furthermore, in their line of work, there was no guarantee that they would return. Since the other party couldn't understand him, he might as well let her go and have peace of mind. I won't be scared. Look at you, you're covered in blood. Your face, the tip of your nose, your eyebrows, and your forehead are all covered in blood. Yi Qian removed her hand from his and caressed his face with her clean hand. She stopped at the corner of his eyes and smiled. Also, I can see that my face, nose, eyebrows, and forehead are all covered in blood. The way you are is the way I am. We're all the same. We don't need to be afraid of anyone, and we don't need to carefully protect anyone. You brought me up, and I'll follow in your footsteps. This is our love. This is the love between the two of us. Xia Jinyuan felt his blood boil because of her words. In the past 23 years, he had finally tasted what it felt like to be touched by words of love. He felt as if there was a fire burning in his chest. Because of her words, he was willing to burn to ashes in a sea of fire. It was not over yet. Yi Qian's words of love were not over yet. She smiled and looked at him deeply. Her gentle voice blended with the wind and fog, and she whispered softly in his ear, We won't struggle in the dark, and we won't cry in cold corners. The love that I want, the love that you want, is the kind of love that we have now. Chapter 949. I won't be afraid of you, and you won't be afraid of me. If you appear in front of me covered in blood, I will say, "Well done, my major." If I appear in front of you covered in blood, you will say, "Well done, my comrade." Look, neither of us will be afraid of the other. We understand each other, and we understand each other. You're right. Compared to romantic love, our love is much stronger. Xia Jinyuan, I believe that our love will always be this strong. Our love will always be this strong. Xia Jinyuan smiled. Little Fox really knew how to talk. Her words touched the bottom of his heart and sweetened his heart. That's right. This is our love. It can be exposed to the sun and wind. Our love is the kind of love that we have now. This is our love. It's a one-of-a-kind love. She wet her hands in the water and gently washed the blood off his handsome face. She saw the gentleness in his eyes and the bright smile on his face. Xia Jinyuan was really good-looking. He was as elegant as bamboo and as proud as a pine tree. His features were like an ink painting on a master's paper. There was a hint of his handsomeness, and there was also a hint of coldness when the ink was splashed. There was no part of him that was not exquisite and elegant. The young major who made her feel a sense of majesty when they first met lived in her heart just like that. No matter how unwilling she was, she could not resist his gentleness. She was washing the blood off his face, and at the same time, he was washing the blood off her face. Both of their eyes were so focused that they could only see each other's faces in their deep eyes until they were clean. Xia Jinyuan's hands pulled the water grass growing in the stream and rubbed it until it was pulp. Then he washed the blood off his fingers bit by bit. Yiqian washed his face very seriously. He pursed his lips slightly and gently washed the blood off his fingers. The gurgling stream washed the blood off his face and hands until there was not a trace of dirt left. Yiqian looked up and smiled. It's very clean. It smells like green grass. In the faint morning light, her face was like a pearl with water droplets on it. It was bright and clear. Her dark eyes looked at him with a smile. The coldness in her expression had quietly faded, leaving only gentleness for him. At this moment, Xia Jinyuan felt that her gentle smile was branded in the depths of his heart. Xia Jinyuan, did you slack off during training? You're too fair standing in the middle of the V8 team. Your face and hands are so fair. If I didn't know better, I would really think that you were slacking off. With his head lowered, Yiqian teased him with a smile. Under the washing of the green grass pulp, his strong hands became even fairer. His fingers were delicate and slender. They were even prettier than a pianist's hands. Xia Jinyuan smiled and replied calmly, "This problem has been bothering me for a few years. When I first entered the military academy, I even thought about going to the hospital to get my skin tanned." Yiqian, who was secretly praising him, did not notice the change in the owner of these hands. Because of her seriousness and concentration, Xia Jinyuan's eyes became darker and darker. You want to become darker when you want to become fairer? How hateful. Letting go of his clean hands, Yiqian scooped up some water and splashed it on her face. Xia Jinyuan, who was squatting beside her, stood up and shouted in a deep voice, "Yiqian." Yiqian smiled and looked up. "I can." Chapter 950. No matter how fast she reacted, it was too late now. Xia Jinyuan, who was already mentally prepared, smiled and stretched out his long arms to hug her waist. His laughter was low and deep beside her ear. It was soft, sexy, and hoarse. "You want to run away now? It's too late, my little fox." "Xia Jinyuan, you're going crazy again." Yiqian, whose legs were lifted into the air, struggled. The more he struggled, the tighter the arms around his waist became. It made it hard for him to breathe. "Put me down. It's uncomfortable for you to hold me like this." Was it uncomfortable to hug her like this? Then change to a more comfortable position. His arms were very strong. He lifted her up gently, allowing her legs to spread across his strong waist. His hands held her buttocks firmly, as if he was holding a child. "How is it? Do you feel comfortable now?" Indeed, it wasn't as comfortable as when he hugged her waist, but this made her even more embarrassed. "I want to kiss you, can I?" Xia Jinyuan's eyes darkened as he took a step forward and asked, "Can I kiss you right here? I really want to kiss you. I can't control myself at all." "May I? May I?" The autumn morning sun peeked out of the clouds, passed through the thin mist, and gently fell on his elegant brows, making Xia Jinyuan's gentleness even clearer in Yi Qian's eyes and heart. Taking a deep breath, Yi Qian bit his lip and said helplessly, "How many more times do you need to ask?" "Ask until you agree." He hugged Yi Qian firmly. The smile at the corner of his mouth was graceful, and there was a hint of laziness that made Yi Qian's heart beat faster. "What if I don't agree?" "Ask until you agree." Yi Qian was exasperated. He stared at him with his clear eyes. "You're being shameless. Idiot, I've always been such a scoundrel. Did you just realize?" Laughter seemed to come from his chest. Xia Jinyuan stepped out of the stream and walked to the flat grassland. "Next, I'm going to do something that I didn't finish yesterday morning." As he spoke, Yi Qian fell into the misty grass. His gaze darkened bit by bit under the faint morning light, causing Yi Qian's heart to race and even his fine eyelashes to tremble slightly. "Xia Jinyuan, be careful." His voice was trembling. As he turned around, Yi Qian was completely flustered. "I've always been very careful, but there are times when I lose control." The young major lowered his head and lowered his tall and imposing body. His hot and dangerous aura made Yi Qian hurriedly use her uninjured hand to support his chest. Even though her voice was trembling slightly, she still asked, "How far do you want to go?" "Let's see how far I can control myself." "Be good, move your hand away. I'm afraid I'll hurt you." The sunlight shone through the mist. His dark eyes seemed to be shining brightly, burning both himself and Yi Qian. His slender hand grasped Yi Qian's hands that were pressed against his chest. Slowly, gently, and forcefully, he removed them bit by bit. "Trust me, I'll control myself. I won't do anything that you can't handle at your age." He put her hands to the side and pressed them against the grass. The last thing Yi Qian saw with her eyes closed was his handsome face. His pitch-black pupils reflected the face of a woman with watery eyes. Chapter 951. That was her. That was her own face. Her eyes were like autumn waves, and her face was like the rosy clouds of the morning sun. Everything was silent. It was as if all sounds had been blocked out. She couldn't hear the gurgling of the running water or the chirping of the morning birds. All she could hear was her own heartbeat. It was so fast that it felt like it was going to jump out of her chest. "Relax, relax, be good, relax a little. I'm nervous too. It's our first time kissing in the wild. I'm nervous too." Xia Jinyuan didn't kiss her immediately. His slender hand held Yi Qian's slender fingers and intertwined his fingers with hers so that she could hold on tightly to his hand. One by one, he kissed her lightly, starting from her forehead. Originally, Yi Jian was also very nervous. When she heard Xia Jinyuan say that he was also very nervous, she couldn't help but smile. It turned out that she was not the only one who was nervous. It turned out that he was also very nervous. Xia Jinyuan, who carefully avoided her injured arm, didn't kiss her with his eyes closed. When he raised his head slightly, he saw Yi Qian smiling. She seemed to like seeing him nervous. As long as she liked it, it was fine. He was nervous too. His deep voice was like red wine, intoxicating and intimate. Just now, it was a battle between the two of us. Only the two of us fought side by side. There were no other comrades supporting us. It was just the two of us fighting. His kiss landed on Yi Qian's earlobe. He even nibbled on it gently. "Also, I found a girl who wasn't afraid of my hands being stained with blood. She even told me what kind of love our love would be." His voice was very warm. It was so warm that one would gradually relax from their nervousness. It was very gentle and warm. One could slowly let down one's guard. Yi Qian opened her eyes slightly. She saw his handsome face magnified in her eyes. He was so close to her. She also saw the joy in his eyes. Xia Jinyuan liked Yi Qian. There was no doubt about that. Hold my hand. Don't be afraid. Believe me. Believe that I won't lose control and do anything to hurt you. Close your eyes and enjoy our victory. The way we enjoy our love. As he lowered his body, the long grass rustled. Through the gaps in the grass, she could see that he had placed Yi Qian under his body and was kissing her passionately. His love would not grow in the dark and struggle in a cold corner. The love he wanted was to be righteous like this. It was just that open and aboveboard. In winter, he could be his neighbor with snowy mountains. In summer, he could be his companion with the sea. In autumn, he could dance with the yellow sand, and in spring, he could spend time with the jungle. This was his love. There was no such thing as premature death, and there was no such thing as fear. She could wash the blood off his body, and he could do the same for her. They wouldn't ask why they were so dirty or why there was so much blood. They could understand each other and encourage each other. They wouldn't hide things because they were afraid, and they wouldn't run away because they wanted to hide things. Xia Jinyuan and Yi Qian's love would grow in the sunshine and eventually become a towering tree that bore many fruits. Yi Qian had already closed her eyes and accepted his kiss. She could see her reflection in his dark eyes. She could clearly see the expression on her face. There was no resistance, no panic. In his deep voice and gentle kiss, her heart had already accepted him. Accepted, the man who made her feel safe. Her heart that had been tightly closed for 2 lifetimes opened little by little. One day she would completely accept him. Chapter 952. With the sky as the cover and the ground as the hut, Xia Jinyuan finally finished the bad thing he didn't manage to do last night. Without any resistance, Yi Qian followed her heart and accepted his passion. But this time, she could clearly feel how fast Xia Jinyuan's kissing skills had improved. Just a second ago, she was still thinking about reminding him not to laugh, but in the next second, she was kissed until she felt dizzy and her whole body went limp on the grass. The long grass was pushed down piece by piece, and the rustling sound told the world how intense the actions of the lovers who were in intimate contact would be. Occasionally, there would be a low moan that would make people blush in the midst of the gurgling stream, and those soft moans were as sweet as honey. Does it feel good? I can hear your voice. It's much softer than before. The diligent and studious Xia Jinyuan was used to asking questions shamelessly. When the sound of the grass rustling stopped, Xia Jinyuan ended the charming and gentle kiss perfectly. He let Yi Qian lie on top of him and opened his arms to hug her tightly, pressing their bodies together intimately. The restlessness didn't stop, but he controlled it. His chest rose and fell, and even the breath he breathed out was hot to the touch. Yi Qian had already carefully avoided the most obvious part of his agitation. Her upper body was close to his chest, and she quietly opened her legs and placed them on both sides of his waist. She was afraid that if she was careless, she would accidentally make herself flustered and cause him to draw in a breath of cold air. She was so careful and didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Suddenly, when she heard him ask her this question, Yi Qian's eyelids trembled slightly, and she simply closed her eyes and pretended to be asleep. She was asleep and didn't hear him. Bastard. He always liked to ask questions that made her feel embarrassed to answer. How was she supposed to answer him? She didn't want to answer. Her head was resting on Xia Jinyuan's shoulder, and her small movements couldn't escape his gaze. We kissed until your lips are red and swollen. Are you still shy? Then I'll have to answer my own question. It must be very comfortable. When I hear your voice, I also feel very comfortable, so much so that my body's reaction is a little big. You're so shocked that you don't even dare to lie under me. Xia Jinyuan, whose lower body was still tense and restless, quickly adjusted the rhythm of his breathing. He used his strong self-control to suppress the restlessness. Every word he said was to divert his attention so that the restlessness would subside as soon as possible. You must be tired. Now you can lay your legs down and everything will return to normal. Everything had returned to normal. It wouldn't touch her lower abdomen again. Yi Qian didn't move. She was already asleep. He really fell asleep. Little fox, Don't you know that it's best to take advantage of someone while they're sleeping? Xia Jinyuan's thin lips moved slightly with a hint of mockery. He admired Yi Qian and his eyes trembled slightly. The prince will kiss the sleeping beauty awake. Let me be the prince too. Xia Jinyuan. Yi Qian opened his eyes and glared at him. Now, please shut up. I need some peace and quiet. Can you be a little more normal? She was a little embarrassed and angry. I won't say anything. Shut up immediately. Xia Jinyuan, who knew when to submit to circumstances, held back his laughter. He quickly patted her back and said, "Don't be angry, don't be angry. Next time I ask you, should I ask for your opinion first? I'm a studious person. I only allow myself to improve and not retreat. Sometimes, I really can't help but want to ask you. I'm just afraid that if I get nervous, I'll hit or bite you." Chapter 953. Little Fox, I'm nervous too. This is my first time interacting with a girl, so I'm not as relaxed as you are. However, I'm a man, and men have to take the initiative. I have to take the initiative. So, even if I'm nervous, I have to take the initiative. This is called accumulating practical experience. It's like fighting a war. There's no chance of winning if you only talk about it every day. Only by doing it can you accumulate experience, win every battle, and build confidence. Yi Qian, who had her eyes closed, didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said that he was nervous, but she was the one who was nervous. You finally smiled. I was really scared when you scared me just now. It's good that you smiled. Let me catch my breath and calm down. Xia Jinyuan pretended to be shocked and looked at Yi Qian as if he needed to be comforted. He hoped that she would comfort him. He was really shameless. The phone vibrated against his pants. Xia Jinyuan didn't even need to blink. Xia Jinyuan's eyes were cold. The shameless Xia Jinyuan instantly entered the state of a soldier. His handsome face was piercingly cold, and there was no trace of gentleness from before. Yi Qian's movements were also quick. She immediately got off his body and looked at Xia Jinyuan, who was picking up the phone calmly, with her eyes full of emotions. The military called. The target in Southern Province was eliminated. They were to immediately meet up with G3 to rescue K7. K7 has been confirmed to be captured. Q King, the military hopes that as many of your comrades left the country at that time, you will return to the country. The Major General's cold voice sounded from the phone. The operation in Southern Province was perfect. The military gave Yi Qian a high evaluation of her ability. Tell her that even if she's just a student now, the military has recorded all her military achievements. We're just waiting for the day she puts on her uniform and serves the country. Yi Qian had been glued to his phone the entire time. She heard the Major General's words clearly. With a cold expression, she didn't care about whether she had any military achievements. She only cared about how dangerous Xia Jinyuan's mission was this time. I'll meet up with G3 immediately and head to the border. He didn't say much, but his short words were filled with a piercingly cold aura. The target in the Southern Province has been dealt with. Identity has not been exposed. Operation Storm Commander Q King is requesting backup. The Major General admired his resolute and fearless subordinate very much. He nodded and said, "Helicopter support, Southern Province Air Force Base. I'll give you 4 hours. The plane will land at the base in 4 hours. With the help of the helicopter, they would be able to rush back to the battlefield to rescue K7. 4 hours." Yi Qian roughly calculated the time. Although it was tight, he could still make it. Their time together began to count down. If they didn't have 4 hours, they would only have an hour and a half at most. The rescue of K7 is imminent. The military can provide you with convenience in the country, but once you're overseas, all contact information will be destroyed. Q King, K7 who entered ST is very likely to have sacrificed himself. It will be very difficult for you to find out his specific direction. ST mercenary group has always welcomed women. The Major's voice gradually trailed off. Xia Jinyuan's expression instantly turned cold. 1 minute later, he rejected without hesitation. "Sir, I reject the military's suggestion this time. Rescuing K7 is our team's task. I don't want anyone else to get involved. You know how high the danger level is. We sent a total of 8 people, and now only 7 have returned. No one can guarantee that there won't be any accidents during the rescue and... Chapter 954. Xia Jinyuan's gaze fell on the figure walking towards the car, and his voice became even colder. Also, Yi Qian has never been in danger alone. Although she is excellent in all aspects, she is still a student. I object to the military's suggestion this time. The military thinks that sending her abroad is not just to rescue K7, they also hope that she can provide. I don't agree. End of report. Without waiting for the Major General to finish speaking, Xia Jinyuan said, "End of report." Very forcefully, he ended the conversation. The Major General on the other end of the phone choked. He wanted to curse, but he couldn't. They had to discuss it. Q King, the military will not make a decision that is disadvantageous to your operation. Yi Qian has worked with you many times, and as a female soldier, she is the most suitable person to infiltrate the ST mercenary group. Why do you? Xia Jinyuan would gladly accept Yi Qian's participation in an operation like the one in Pakistan, but this time, he refused without any discussion. The ST mercenary group is notorious around the world. Female captives who have fallen into their hands have never walked out in one piece. Major General, it is precisely because Yi Qian is a female that I don't agree. The ST mercenary group was a mercenary group that only worked for money. They were cruel, heartless, bloodthirsty, and tortured captives. Falling into the hands of such a mercenary group would depend on how many lives K7 could survive. Even male soldiers had to survive a few times, but female soldiers would always end up much worse than male soldiers. Not only would they be tortured, but they would also be humiliated. With such a mercenary group, Major General, I don't know why the military would make such a suggestion. Every word in the last sentence was mixed with hostility. He used a completely doubtful attitude to deny the military's decision. Luckily, Xia Jinyuan had good self-control. If he had a more explosive temper, he would probably directly say, "Did water get into your brain?" After he finished this sentence, he said, "End of report." Then he unilaterally ended the conversation. Letting Yi Qian go to the ST mercenary group alone to scout the way? How could he agree? In Pakistan, at least the other party was a group of people who had faith and would never humiliate a female captive. As for the ST mercenary group, as long as one knew a little about them, the color of their faces would change. After hanging up, Xia Jinyuan thought for a while and turned off his phone. Since the military had said that it was a suggestion, it was a suggestion. It was clear that they had discussed it carefully. They were only telling him to sound him out. Perhaps they wanted him to ask Little Fox. Xia Jinyuan could not help but shudder when he thought of Yi Qian's fearless attitude. If the Little Fox knew about this, she would definitely agree. She agreed, but he really didn't. After turning off his phone, Xia Jinyuan walked to the front of the car with a carefree expression. He patted Yi Qian's shoulder like a comrade and praised him with a smile. The military is very satisfied. They've recorded all your achievements. You now have 3 military merits. Well done, Little Fox. Once you graduate from the military academy, you won't be promoted to major, right? According to the military rank regulations of China, students who graduated from junior college or university would generally be given the rank of second lieutenant after they were assigned to a post in the military. Those who graduated from undergraduate studies would be given the rank of first lieutenant. Some would first be given the rank of second lieutenant, and after an internship period, they would be given the rank of first lieutenant. Those who graduated from graduate studies would be given the rank of captain. It was extremely rare for someone like Yi Qian, who did not even go to military academy, to have military merits directly. Her identity was special and could not be defined as an ordinary citizen. If they wanted to convert military merits into a substantial reward, Yi Qian would not accept it. Uncle Zhen and Uncle Chen would not agree to it either. In order to retain an outstanding talent like Yi Qian, the military had miraculously reached a consensus without any discussion to record military merits. Chapter 955. Since it was recorded as military merit, according to the implementation of the 7th article of the Chinese military regulations, after Yi Jian graduated, her 3 military merits were already outstanding enough. So, it wasn't impossible. However, for Yi Jian, military ranks were a little far away from her. What she was thinking about now had nothing to do with herself. It was all about the major in front of her who could still talk and laugh with her. Don't worry about me. Think about your matter first. K7 was captured, your identities are unknown, and you have to be careful of being hunted down. Captain Xia, I hope you can come back alive even if you're injured. Rescues were often more dangerous than breakthroughs. They knew this, and so did Yi Qian. Xia Jinyuan raised his eyebrows and pulled Yi Qian into his arms. Although she spoke frankly, her words were filled with concern. He quickly kissed her slightly swollen lips. No, I can't lose my life so easily. I'm still waiting for little Fox to hold my hand and attend your high school graduation ceremony after you graduate from high school. I still have to wait for my little Fox to go to university, so we can be together. His voice was still high-spirited before, but in the end, he lowered his voice and whispered into her ear with a flirtatious expression. Yi Jian, who had finally calmed down from the passionate kiss, suddenly felt like a ball of scorching hot air was blowing against her face because of his words. It was so hot that even her fair earlobes were flushed red. He actually said, something about using condoms together? Xia Jinyuan, you're too indecent. Yi Qian lifted her leg. This time, she didn't hold back and directly stomped on his foot. I'm only 17 years old. You're indecent too. Was he really that indecent? Why did he feel that it was normal? 17 years old. Yes, a little young. A high school girl was underage. It was a little inappropriate for him to suddenly be so blunt. However, Xia Jinyuan endured the pain in his foot and maintained his gentlemanly demeanor. He said elegantly, your actual age is 17, so according to the nominal age, you're 18 years old. Also, little Fox, your maturity always makes me overlook your actual age. Your mental age is definitely 20 years old. Although it was painful, seeing the bashful look on her face made it painful again. It was worth it, because he had been holding a gun for a long time. His rough and slender fingers were gently caressing her cheeks. He looked at her with a deep gaze and said in a low and sexy voice, I'm not being indecent. It's all very normal. You're not 13 or 14 years old at the age where you don't know anything. When you're 17 years old, you should know what you should know. I hope that I'll be the one to tell you these intimate things. I'll tell you openly, and I hope that you can accept it with a healthy mindset, because sex will become an indispensable thing in our lives in the future. I'm telling you now not because I'm not being serious. I just want you to know and understand. Don't you think it's more appropriate for me to tell you, little Fox? Yi Qian was speechless. What he said, she had no way to refute it. When it came to reasoning, Major Xia was extremely talented. Even if she had lived 2 lifetimes, she was still not his match. In terms of shamelessness, he wasn't as good as him. She was not as thick-skinned as him. When it came to reasoning, there was no one better at talking than him. Thinking about it carefully, Yi Qian was a little dumbfounded. She realized that in terms of life, she was no match for Xia Jinyuan. Chapter 956. Think about it carefully and see if what I said makes sense. Letting go of her hand, Xia Jinyuan opened the door and got into the car first. As he bent over, the young and scheming major, who had lured the innocent Fox into his trap step by step, curved his lips into a meaningful smile. He had to let the little Fox get used to it and know in advance. 17 years old was not young, how could she not know what she should know? Wait until she was in her 20s to understand? That would be a little too late. When they were in their 20s, success would come naturally. He did not want the two of them to experience any unpleasantness during normal physical interactions to enhance intimacy. He liked her and only wanted her to be happy from the bottom of his heart. Doing anything with him, such as kissing, caressing, or making love, was very pleasurable. All he wanted was for her to be happy. Yi Qian silently hit her head. She had lived for 2 lifetimes. And Major Xia in the 90s was more open-minded. In her previous life, she had made one mistake and then another. She had lived a useless life. In this life, she had finally won back the life that belonged to her. How did she meet Xia Jinyuan? She did not know how to deal with it at all. Looking at her secretly hitting her head with a vexed and conflicted expression, Xia Jinyuan started the car and the smile on his face deepened. It was good to be a little reckless when you were young. When you were a little reckless, you would become thick-skinned. Once you were thick-skinned, you would be able to do anything as a matter of course and not feel guilty at all. After Yi Qian got into the car, the Major stepped on the accelerator and instantly accelerated to 240 miles per hour. The whole car drove out of the mountain road like a race car and headed straight for the city center. After getting into the car, Yi Qian was still feeling uneasy. Condoms and whatnot. How could he say it so easily? The car drove very fast. As soon as she sat in the front passenger seat, she saw the shadows of trees on both sides of the car pass by from the corner of her eyes. In the blink of an eye, they had traveled several kilometers. Yi Qian, who had been slightly pursing her lips, looked at the man driving. That serious side profile. It was as if nothing had happened just now. There was still a gap. No, she had to calm herself down. What had happened was in the past. Why should she keep thinking about it? He was simply making himself uncomfortable. Xia Jinyuan, who was able to control his emotions, had already thought about the important matter. Since he had made a big fuss, he had to get down to business as soon as possible. He said in a serious tone, although the mercenaries lured to the southern province have all been dealt with, we can't rule out the possibility that there will be more mercenaries outside. You should stay in school for the next few days. It's best if you don't go outside. Yi Qian, who was also quickly calming himself down, replied with a slightly cold expression, none of the 8 people we sent out survived. It's normal for them to come looking for us. But I'm safer than all of you. Captain Xia, you don't have to worry about me. Don't worry about me, don't get distracted because of me, don't worry about me, don't get hurt because of me. I don't need you to worry about me either. Just focus on recuperating in school. Xia Jinyuan understood her unspoken words. He stared coldly at Xia Jinyuan in front of him, and his heart softened. They were like-minded lovers. They understood each other more and respected each other more. This kind of love was unique to Xia Jinyuan. You don't have to think about anything other than your studies in school. Just like me, you don't have to think about anything other than how to destroy the enemy on the battlefield. You take good care of yourself in school, and I'll take good care of myself on the front line. We have to be well, understand? When they were waiting for a red light, Xia Jinyuan held Yi Qian's hand. He gently rubbed the back of her hand with his thumb and looked at her with an incredibly gentle gaze. We have to take good care of ourselves. Chapter 957. Take good care of yourself and don't let him worry. I'll only be at ease if you're well. Yi Qian smiled and nodded. I will. You will too. Yi Jian hesitated for a moment before she lifted her right hand and held his right hand. She didn't dare to look at Xia Jinyuan anymore. She stared straight ahead. She didn't dare to look at Xia Jinyuan anymore. She wasn't used to taking the initiative. She always felt like she was doing something naughty. Every time she took the initiative, she had to be mentally prepared. She took a step towards Xia Jinyuan with embarrassment and shyness. She took the initiative, but Xia Jinyuan's gaze deepened. Yi Qian shifted uncomfortably and said dryly, Drive? Why are you looking at me? Little fox, even if I want to drive, I need to be able to drive. Xia Jinyuan looked down at his right hand that she was holding tightly. He was in a good mood and smiled. For the time being, I can't shift gears and drive with one hand. Yi Qian immediately let go of his hand as if he had been electrocuted. How awkward! Since when did I hold his right hand so tightly? At this moment, she didn't look at the front, but turned her head sideways and looked out of the car window, leaving the back of her head for Xia Jinyuan, who was laughing in a low voice. He met a bold yet shy little fox. No matter how he looked at her, she was adorable. Her cuteness had a magical power that made him reluctant to part with her. Sometimes, he even felt that just listening to her voice could dissipate the fatigue of the day. Yi Qian listened to his deep chuckle and thought about her behavior just now. She couldn't help but raise her hand to her forehead. Why did she keep acting so childishly in front of him? He even kissed her neck by the stream. What was there to be embarrassed about? Neck? Yi Qian quickly touched her neck. It wasn't red from the kiss, was it? Her skin was a little sore from the kiss just now. She touched her neck to see if there were any red marks. Xia Jinyuan, who knew what was going on, smiled and said, 2 red marks, symmetrical on the left and the right. The size is even and the shape is not bad. You did it on purpose, Xia Jinyuan. Yi Qian glared at him and immediately let go of her ponytail. Then she parted her hair to cover both sides of her neck. That should be enough. Just now, it was indeed a bit intense. How did she let him kiss her neck? She even left a kiss mark on him. She didn't know when it would disappear. What if her classmates found out, especially if Jiasin found out? How was she going to explain it? Xia Jinyuan did it on purpose. Why would he do that on purpose? Unable to control himself, by the time he realized it, there was already one. 1 strawberry will cause misunderstandings. Why don't we just leave 2 strawberries? With strawberries, people won't misunderstand. Xia Jinyuan's explanation sounded quite reasonable. His smiling eyes occasionally slid across Yi Qian's face. His eyes were so bright that they seemed to sparkle. Yi Qian was already thinking about how to make him leave a kiss mark on her. When she looked up, she saw the sparkle in his deep eyes, which were like stars, shining on her body. Yi Qian's fingertips trembled and she felt her face heat up. The temperature in the car seemed to have risen by a lot. Her back was sweating slightly, leaving his mark on her body. Just thinking about it made his blood boil. Leaving his mark, leaving his scent. It was as if he really wanted to melt her into his bones. Chapter 958. Xia Jinyuan, who had become restless after thinking about it for a while, took the initiative to put down the car window and let the cool morning breeze calm down his boiling blood. He did not want to be like a young man who was easily restless and restless. Yi Jian, whose back was sweating, also put down the car window at the same time. The 2 car windows were put down at the same time. After a few seconds of silence in the car, they looked at each other and smiled slowly from the corners of their eyes. They didn't speak anymore. One drove steadily and quickly, while the other sat quietly and occasionally made eye contact. Just looking at each other in silence was more than 1,000 words. G3 came out of the provincial hospital and drove the car he drove from the hotel yesterday to the rendezvous point as fast as he could. They had to reach the base in 4 hours and leave southern province by helicopter. The mission to return to China was over, and the next step was to rescue their comrade, K7. The last rendezvous point was at the entrance of the highway. Xia Jinyuan arrived 1.5 hours later. Before the car stopped, G3 opened the door and jumped into the car. There are still 3 hours left. If we take the highway, we will reach the base in 2 hours. He then looked at Yi Qian and saw the white gauze on her arm. G3 raised his eyebrows. More honor. Good luck, Yi Qian. Good luck, G3. Yi Qian turned around and smiled at him. I will wait for your safe return. The car stopped. Yi Qian took the car keys from G3 and said to Xia Jinyuan with pursed lips, there is still about a month before the maple leaves turn golden. I hope you will come back by then, put on your military uniform, and take me to see the mountain full of yellow maple leaves. G3's car was also borrowed from Hozi, and Yi Qian would drive it back to Hozi. It won't be long, it will be soon. It's still early. You can go back to the 23rd floor to rest after breakfast, or go to the library. You don't have to rush back to school. Xia Jinyuan opened the car door and hugged her gently. He reminded her again, I am going on a long journey. You wait for me. We have to be safe. Yi Qian raised his hands and placed them on Wei Xiaobao's shoulders. His voice was clear and calm as he said, You're on a long journey, I'll wait for you. My only wish is that everything will be fine and that I'll wait for your return. This time, Xia Jinyuan did not even give him a military salute. Without any hesitation, he opened the car door and got into the car, leaving only the shadow of his car for Yi Qian to see. In the car, G3 turned around and saw Yi Qian standing by the roadside. He saw her salute their car slowly, like a comrade in the brigade, silently sending off a comrade who was on a mission. G3 silently raised his hand and saluted Yi Qian from afar. He waited until Yi Qian was out of sight before he retracted his hand and said to Xia Jinyuan, who had a serious expression on his face and was focused on driving, "Q King, you've met such a good girl. When she grows up, you should find a chance to marry her. There are too many single people in the brigade. You should take the lead and let us all join in the fun. Who knows, maybe one day we can all get married." The comrades in the Snowfield Brigade did not dare to say who they wanted to marry. They only dared to say who they wanted to marry. However, the point was that they all hated marrying and could not get married even if they wanted to. No one dared to marry them. For example, J5 and K7, who were so well-to-do, whenever they were free, they would yell and shout every day that they wanted to marry themselves off. However, after yelling for a few years, there was no response. As for the other comrades, they were all well-to-do and had good family backgrounds. No one dared to marry themselves off. The danger of their profession made them very cautious when it came to choosing love. Welcome to Legends of Cultivation audiobooks, where we bring ancient fantasy to life through storytelling. Follow the rise of heroes who defy fate, unlock mystical powers, and battle across celestial realms. Our audiobooks are crafted for fans of Chinese cultivation novels, filled with battles, breakthroughs, and legendary artifacts. Subscribe and be part of an unforgettable journey into the realm of immortality.